It's time for number 18 in my series of comic book movie reviews, where we take a look at Superman's cousin, which is the equivalent to that time my cousin, Lil Pookie, and them from around the way did that thing at this one place this one time. Not enough in the world. Supergirl, 1984, is brought to us by director Jenna Swart and stars Helen Slater, no relation to Christian by the way, Faye Dunaway, and Peter O'Toole. After losing a powerful orb, Kara Zor-El, Superman's cousin, comes to Earth to retrieve it and finds herself up against a wicked witch. No shit, that's the synopsis. So this movie exists in the Christopher Reeve Superman universe, and man, is it fucking bad. I don't think the filmmakers knew how Superman or Supergirl's powers worked. I don't think they really knew anything about this universe, period, besides the fact that these characters can fly. Take, for instance, the way that Supergirl arrives on Earth. Did she come from the stars? Well, yeah, maybe, I guess. I'm not really sure. Because after leaving her floating city in the sky somewhere, we're not really sure why. I guess she's Superman's cousin, but they weren't on Krypton when it blew up, I suppose? Not really sure. They know that Superman went to Earth, they mention it. But here they are, floating around in space in this crystal-looking city thing. And after she loses this magical orb that just like takes off into space and goes to Earth, I guess, she follows it in her own little ball spaceship. And halfway there, by the way, it just opens up so she can do like a hero pose while it's still flying through the cosmos. And then does she arrive from the sky, say like Superman did? Oh no, she just shoots out of a fucking lake, full costume and all. It makes no fucking sense. Not only does this really odd occurrence occur, but the movie never once mentions anything about it. Nobody acts as if it was odd that this girl that came from space just shot out of a lake, fully clothed. But whatever, that is the least problematic thing with this movie. The movie's story just is. There's not really any real reason that's actually followed for any of these events to occur. Supergirl miraculously arrives on Earth and then decides, hey, let's go to school. No real reason why. She just comes across the school and says, sure, I'll do that. We're also introduced to Faye Dunaway's Selina, who is a witch, or at least someone trying to be a witch. Why? Well, why the fuck not? That's why. There's a handyman that's working outside of Supergirl's school that Selina happens upon and says, hey, he's really hot. I want to make him my man. So she goes to put a magic spell on him to make him fall in love with her. And somehow, someway, this becomes central to what the movie calls the plot. Things like this happen in this movie that just don't even seem like they're in the same movie. Like in one part where Selina possesses a bulldozer in the middle of town so that it can go and scoop up her hot handyman to bring him to her, wrecking the entire town in the process. If you have magical powers, why the fuck are you gonna possess a bulldozer out in the middle of everybody to pick up this drunk looking guy in the middle of the street to bring you slowly all the way back to you? Why not like teleport him or something? And you might be thinking, well, maybe she can't teleport things. Aha! You would be wrong, because later on in the movie she teleports quite a few things, including this same guy. She moves him from one place to another multiple times. So why the fuck didn't she just do that in the beginning? Because then we wouldn't have a big bombastic action scene where a bulldozer is terrorizing the city and Supergirl's newfound best friend, Lois Lane's sister by the way, is knocked unconscious on the bulldozer for reasons, and she has to go and save her and save the city and save Hot Handyman so that he can see her first and fall in love with her instead of Faye Dunaway's Selina. This is how this movie's plot creates conflict. And honestly, the only conflict it made was between me and my want to actually finish this fucking movie. Now I get why they wanted to make a Supergirl movie because of Superman's popularity at the time. I just don't get why they wanted to make this Supergirl movie. At what point in the conception phase of this film did they sit down with this script and say, yeah, that seems like a good idea, like any of it? Because none of it does seem like a good idea. This movie is a random fucking mess. It is so random and all over the place that there's nothing in this movie or no one in this movie that you ever truly get invested in, even in the simplest way. I mean, I could deal with the randomness and incoherent nature of the plot. I mean, I like Superman 3 after all. But due to the fact that the movie is just so out there and just can't keep itself focused on anything for any amount of time, time, it comes across as pretty damn boring. And boring is something I just can't forgive when it comes to a film. I had a really hard time paying attention to this shit show. I had to rewind moments a couple of times because I just kind of tuned it out and just had to go back because I was like, wait, did something important just happen? I need to go back and pay more attention. But no, don't worry. Anytime I did that, nothing important happened. So effectively, the movie ended up wasting even more of my time. Now, I could go on all day about the narrative issues with this movie, but just know that there is no real narrative to this movie, and that's probably the biggest issue of all. Now, we got a cast of pretty well-known actors here. My biggest question, though, is how in the hell did they convince them to do this? Most specifically, Faye Dunaway and Peter O'Toole. What in the hell did they have on these two to convince them to be in this movie? They must have had like some Jeffrey Epstein Island videos on these two or something, because I cannot for the life of me figure out what would compel these two very well-known actors to participate in this absolute fucking dumpster fire of a movie. You couldn't possibly make me believe that this movie had a good script and it like got butchered in the filmmaking process or something. No, something this bad didn't start good at all. It started out bad and just got fucking worse. I will give Dunaway this much. She is all in on this part from beginning to finish, just hamming it up and having a great time. Does that really make the movie any better? No, not really, but it is good to see that somebody's having a good time with this thing. Slater is good as Supergirl. Now, I use the term good lightly because the dialogue in this movie is so abysmal and doesn't even make sense half the time. So even if her performance were good, you'd be hard-pressed to tell. She's got the look down. She's a great-looking Supergirl, and it seems like she could probably act fairly well. I mean, we've seen her in other things after this movie, and she did pretty good. But here, along with everybody else, she's pretty fucking terrible. Regardless if that's the dialogue or the performances, it came across just bad. The effects are... yeah, they're pretty fucking bad too. With the exception of the flying bits. By the time this movie came out in 1984, they had that pretty down pat, and they do look pretty good here. However, they do this like weird dancing flying thing that Supergirl does in the movie. I don't really know why that is. It looks a bit odd. Her actually like flying through the air looks good. You don't see the wires or anything, but this whole dancing like Cirque du Soleil delay or whatever thing that she does is just kind of weird. And that's about all they got in the effects department that looks good. Yeah, the flying, it's good, but everything else just looks really fucking bad. In particular, there's this part in the end where Supergirl gets stretched by this big devil type of monster. Man, that is just an absolutely fucking terrible effect. It's so bad that that part was actually laughable. I actually had a decent enough time the few seconds that that was happening because I was laughing my ass off. It looks abso-fucking-lutely atrocious, even for 1984. So yeah, the movie's narrative is bad, the performances are bad, and it looks pretty bad overall, so yeah, it's not that good. Given the state of the more recent show and how this movie turned out, I just don't think that Supergirl was destined to be put to the screen. Guys, Supergirl was pretty much a failure on every level. The story is just non-existent and dumb as hell. The performances are awful, and the abysmal writing didn't help the situation. The effects, which should have been the one department coming off of the other Superman movies that actually did shine, they're pretty fucking bad too. And the biggest sin of all is that this movie's just boring. And that is the one sin that I just can't let go, and the main reason that Supergirl is sadly a dumpster fire. This movie so bad, but I kind of knew it was coming, seeing as how I remember seeing this movie when I was younger. And you know how sometimes when you see a movie when you're younger and you have fonder memories of it than when you saw it as an adult? No, this one I thought was shit then, so I kind of knew that this was not gonna go well. So even for fans of the Christopher Reeve Superman movies, and especially for fans of Supergirl, this movie is just gonna be a big waste of your time and just not worth it whatsoever. So there it is, guys, my review of Supergirl 1984. If you enjoyed and want more content like this, hit that subscribe button and help my little channel grow. If you want to help out the channel, check out my Patreon in the description below and become a jarhead and get some of the awesome benefits to go along with that, like these guys, and possibly join my top tier and become a bad motherfucker like my man Greg C and Dragon Khan. If you liked what I had to say, give me a like. If not, let me know in the comments below why. And as always, stay sexy, whatever in the fuck the name of this dumbass small city in this movie was. So what's next on the comic book movie review list? Oh shit. Well, I feel kind of dumb. It would appear that I skipped a couple of movies. And those movies would be the Conan movies, which is actually kind of odd, seeing as how I have a quote from the first Conan movie tattooed on my body. And somehow I forgot that shit and skipped it. Yep, no way around it. I forgot that shit and somebody called me out on it too. But I'm gonna make it right next week. Fucking idiot. Crumb would be disappointed.